Hey, this is Ant from Your Property Network, and today we're doing my favourite bit where we're talking property with a real life property investor who's out there doing real deals and probably making some real mistakes along the way, as well as some great successes. And we're here to learn, and I'm here to learn. So today we're talking particularly about serviced accommodation, but we're touching upon other types of deals as well. And I'm really, really glad to be joined by Andy Hart. So Andy, welcome to the call.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having me on.
It's brilliant to have you. So today we are talking about serviced accommodation, and we're looking in depth at one of your projects. But you are fairly prolific in property investing, and so I think it's really important that we talk about the other things that you do and then why you chose this strategy in particular. So perhaps first of all, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are and life pre-property, because very few of us are kind of born property investors.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, as you know, my name's Andy Hart, and I'd call myself basically an accidental landlord, if you like. When I left school with no education back in the late 80s, mid 80s, sorry. Left school with no education. I had that vision just to be successful. Didn't want to be the normal 9 to 5 sort of person. So I firstly sort of accidentally, I'll say, got into property when I was probably a late start. I was 30 years of age. But up until then, I've been a floor layer carpet fitter, earning decent money, putting the money aside basically until the moment come when I could purchase my first property. So I purchased that back in year 2000. Which I bought off the council. I've actually since bought a couple off the council at real knockdown discounted price, and I basically just had that hunger for it. Then I just seen what prices I was buying the property for and what prices the value were there they were at the time, and then I was started then to leverage the equity I had in those properties and then sort of scale my portfolio up. And that's what I did basically, kept refinancing, because I had that vision that I wanted to retire early. Although I'm a workaholic, I wanted to retire early, but I knew that eventually with the way properties go, doubling value every 10 years or so, the point would come there. I'll be in my sort of late 40s, I'd be able to retire on my portfolio, and that's exactly what I did. So behind it all, really, all I'm trying to say is, I didn't really worry about education at school because I had that mindset that I'd be a property millionaire by as quick as I could, so that I could sort of have the freedom and life, and that's where I'm at now. So since then, I've scaled it up to 14 properties and a mix of I've just got into service accommodation. I've done the occasional flip, but not many, and most of them are buy-to-lets and HMO. Learned the hard way. It's been very tough and real. To a lot of stories you do see, all the realities on television. I think that's just what people want to see. But the realities of it as well. You can have. There's a lot of downsides to property investing, and I have been stung a lot of times along the way. So obviously we can go into that at a later time. But yeah. So here I am now. Properties trebled in value. Financially free, and I'm never one to stop. I'm just going to keep scaling, but I'm really, really happy that I had that vision when I was a young kid.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned before we started the recording earlier on, this has never really been about having the kind of flash sports car, the Lamborghini Ferrari for you. This is about kind of financial freedom and choice and long-term wealth and responsibility, because, hey, let's be honest, we don't know what might be around the corner, do we? So, okay, great. So in terms of service accommodation, I know you've been working really closely with two very good friends of mine, Phil and Jamie. I was interested to sort of find out what attracted to you to this particular niche, because they do operate a particular niche within service accommodation as well. How did you find out about them, and what was it? Given that your own portfolio has served you really well over the years, what was it about kind of moving into SA that was appealing for you?
I believe in any business you go into, I'm always evolving, and things are always changing, and goalposts are always changing, especially with what the governments were bringing out, and all the legislation, etc., etc. And buy-to-let was getting harder and harder. And with this one in particular, I've taken on. That was basically a property I purchased, which was going to be again a refinance, and then I put it on a buy-to-let mortgage. However, when it was done and the refurb was there, the refinance was put in situ. The rental I was expecting, it wasn't nowhere near the rent I expected, because of my other properties are in Wales and also South Birmingham. So I took it back off the rental market because the way I looked at it is that I looked into service accommodation. That's when I reached out to Jamie and Phil, because I looked at it and thought, well, on a buy to let, this isn't going to work. And there was a Premier Inn only just literally around the corner. So I'd done a bit of research. I thought, well, if that Premier Inn, only 3 minutes drive around the corner, has been there over 20 years, it tells me that there's maybe a market for me to dip my toe into service accommodation. Reached out to Phil and Jamie. I thought, I've got nothing to lose, because on a buy-to-let I was only going to make a mere £300 a month, which is not what I wanted to do, because the return on the investment, looking at that, was nowhere near what I expected. So I ended up spending another £10,000 on the deal, and I went into my first service accommodation, which was it sort of blew me away. And what I like about it as well is that, that you don't have the tenants' rights. The property's always beautifully done up for you if you ever want to sell it. At any point, it's there, it's made, the beds are made, it's all clean and spotless, ready for a sale. And the cash flow's over treble than what it would have been on the buy-to-let. So it absolutely works for me.
Okay, brilliant. Can you tell us a little bit about the property, kind of paint a picture? So what is it, where is it, and how did you find it?
Yeah, the property is in Stourbridge, which is not my investment area. My investment area is Birmingham, albeit it's only 20 minutes away. But strange enough, my daughter came across it. She knows what her dad does, and she came across it and she said, "Oh, Dad, I've seen this house in Stourbridge. It looks really nice, and maybe it might work for a nice little buy-to-let for you, or even for myself." But so I looked at it. I thought, wow, it just ticked all the boxes. It was it was local to all amenities. It's next door to a school. It's a 5-minute walk to a town centre. So I looked at it, and it was really run down. And I went to see the agents, and the agents were sort of happy that I was viewing it, because the other call it, if you like, investors were looking at it, and other people just for a normal a residential home. They were a bit concerned that it's got a lot of cracking inside the property, internal walls, in the lounge, in the staircase, in the bedrooms. But I always believe that if a problem can be fixed, then it's worth having a punt on it. So I ended up purchasing it on a bridge, and obviously repaired all the works. I purchased it for 170,000. The market value at that time was 190,000, so I got it I'd say I got it £20,000 less than what it was, because of all these little issues what people were finding. And so I went 20 grand down. Spent about 38,000 on the refurb. Refinanced it, put it on a bridge. Put it on a mortgage, a service accommodation mortgage, and now it cash flows me £1,000 a month. Wow. So the return on the investment ended going from 5-6% to 58% return on the investment.
So what was when you got the kind of improved value, what did it kind of revalue at, and how much money did you have to leave in the deal after the refinance?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's the best deal, because we all like an infinite return, but in today's market, I find it really, really hard. And a lot of people say that you can pull your money out nearly every deal. That in the real world, that's what we all want. But
I think if everyone is being honest, if we're all being honest, the no money left in deals are
Pretty
very difficult to achieve
They
these
they
days.
are,
So
and the way I look at it as well is I will end up getting an infinite return anyway because especially on this with the rental income after 2 years I've got all my money out. So basically, the end value after I purchased it for 170, I spent 38 on it, and then obviously we had legals. So I think with the legals it was just under 178,000. I put 38,000 refurb in, and then my end value was 260. It got valued at 260,000.
okay, yeah,
So with that, I refinanced it. So I got a mortgage of 195. I think my mortgage payments were sort of a high fee at the time, to be fair, because it being a service accommodation mortgage, and 2 years ago the rates were, as we all know, pretty high. So I got a sort of a high rate on it. I think just under 5%.
yeah. Can I ask
Yeah,
about the kind of refinancing onto an SA product actually, because
yeah,
it's a topic that a lot of people won't necessarily know about,
yeah,
and one of those ones that there's a little bit of misinformation around. So I've heard, in fact, I've heard brokers say, oh, you need to have kind of 2 years worth of accounts showing what it's rented for, and then you need to present them before you can refinance. At which point, virtually
yeah.
everybody I know says that ain't
No,
going to work for
no.
me. So, what was your experience of choosing an SA product?
Well, I've got great brokers, to be fair, and the brokers I've had and what I've got now are other brokers would just say that just can't happen. I mean, just diverse a little bit. I've got a house with a possessory title on up in Wales. The possessory title is obviously you're aware of. Mortgage lenders don't like them sort of deals. So my broker got me a mortgage on this property in Wales with possessory title. It was difficult at the time because I was going for just a normal straight buy to let, which we did actually get and got offered. But when I changed my mind at the last minute, we ended up getting a service accommodation. Yes, I did have to give accounts in and etc., more figures in, but I seemed to get it. Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah. Yeah, someone I was talking to earlier on said, well, actually, what I needed to do was generate a report from, I think it was Sykes Cottages, that they were saying
A
actually this is
projection, yeah.
projection of what it's going to be, rather than kind of historical kind of your accounts for the last 2 years, because it would be difficult for a lot of us to wait for two,
Of
three
course it
years to
would. Yeah, of course.
build up those. So,
Yeah.
and is that valuation, is that done on a sort of pure bricks and mortar basis, or is it done
No,
according
no,
to
bricks
your
and mortar,
commercial?
bricks and mortar,
Yeah,
bricks and mortar value. I mean, in today's market, it's gone up another 20 grand. I mean, this was 2 years ago; it's 280,000 now, but at the time it was valued at 260,000. So if I was to sell the asset, I would have made 44,000. Now, in a lot of investors' minds, a lot of investors like to make 20% return on on a flip. Let's say so that would have been sort of what 52 grand. 44 grand's not bad, is it? It's better than keeping the money in the bank. So it would have been a 44 grand profit on the flip. But I don't usually like flipping properties. I never do, really. I like to keep the assets for long-term wealth. So I ended up refinancing it, and it cash flows me £1,000 a month. Now, talking about money I've left in the deal, because when we refinanced it, I left in just under £21,000. I left in £20,700 in that deal. Now, that would probably finish a newbie off if they'd only got £20,000 to the name. However, I don't mind leaving £20,000 in deals because obviously I'll refinance. So years ago, I probably couldn't afford it to leave that amount of money. But the way I look at it, if I can get my investment out within 24 months, then to me that's a good investment, and that's exactly how this is working.
yeah. I mean, I think probably for most people, as you say, unless someone's starting with very limited funds, or they're just trying to work with private investor money that needs to be refinanced with it, repaid within a time frame, then actually to get a 50% return on capital employed is phenomenal. I wanted to ask you about the kind of tenant profile, sort of guest profile in the property as well. So when I've talked to Phil and Jamie and some of their other students that they've worked with, it's very much been kind of the multi kind of generational sort of family let property where someone might be going for a special occasion, to spend time with family or whatever. Who are your guests? Who comes to stay in the property?
It's quite funny. This is it's really bizarre, and I've never thought in a million years these type of guests would have come there, because when I when I first went on live on Airbnb.com, obviously we tested the water, and it just completely flew out the window. The bookings were coming in thick and fast, and everyone said to me, the naysayers people in business anyway, the people who say you should never do it, and I've always sort of observed the masses and gone the complete opposite way. They've said, who would want to stay in Stourbridge? Who wants to stay in them houses in Stourbridge? There's not, and I said, well, obviously people who don't live in Stourbridge. It's always people who don't live in that area, hence they need a night to stay somewhere. I'm actually getting, and I've had a lot of people from the USA, Canada, Texas, Vancouver, Australia, as far as Australia, and every time I get a booking, it's somebody as far as that, and it is. I'd say 40% of my bookings are from outside of the UK, and especially the States, and it's crazy. And obviously, I ask that question to them. I say, "Hi, it's Andy. I'm your host, etc., etc. Just want to make you feel welcome, and can ask a question. What's the reason why you come into Stourbridge for the week or the 2 weeks or the month, etc." And it's always because I don't think they just pick it out the sky that they live in Sydney and they decide they want to go to Stourbridge for a week. It's purely because the partner used to live there, or the mother and father lived there, or the relatives live there, or they're going to a family wedding, or there's a birth, or there's a funeral. So yeah, them the sort of people. I'd say I probably get about 20% of contractors, because again, people are always asking SA, are you going down the contractor route, or are you going down the holiday let route? And you don't, unless it's on the seaside, you don't know what sort of clientele you're going to get in the city centre, do you, really? Or near town. You just don't know. So I'd class myself as mixed use, but I do get probably 70% of holiday let people from all over the world. It's crazy.
And that sounds like it's predominantly for kind of longer term bookings than just the 2 nights at the weekend as well.
I open my calendars up for everyone now, to be fair, and just to fill in the gaps and the orphan gaps, etc. But I'd say the average is a 4-night stay. However, next week or the 1st of February, I've got a whole month, which is a great booking because you save on your cleaning, etc., etc. So I've got a month in February, but predominantly I'd say that there are a minimum of 3 stays up to sort of 7 nights.
And what sort of party size would that be within one house?
Well, it's a 3-bedroom house, and I'm maxed at 7. But to be fair, it's usually the par side no more than 5 usually.
Okay. And when you were kind of perhaps working with Phil and Jamie to assess the level of demand in the area,
yeah.
How did that work then? Do you kind of create a dummy ad and test the levels of response, or are you looking at are there many properties in the area at the moment? They're Airbnb. What's the level of demand, and how do you go about pricing as well?
Well, what I did, called it crafty, but I went to the local Premier Inn because it is round the corner from the house, and that's what sparked my brain when I thought, well, I'm not going to accept £1,000 on this beautiful house I've just renovated, because I'm in the flooring game as well, so I put the best flooring down. I probably went a bit OTT on this property, but I do like to make my products better than the next person. I'm not one of these cheapskates who does it on a low budget. I try to make it look expensive without it being expensive. That makes sense. So it looks classy. Research. I went to the local Premier Inn. I walked in there and I just said, "Listen, I'm a builder. I'm not a builder. I'm a tradesman, but I'm a builder, and I'm thinking about staying in the area. Are you busy?" And they said, "Oh, when are you thinking?" I didn't tell them that obviously what I'm doing about my own SA. So I'm thinking about coming to the area with some friends to build a couple of properties, but we need somewhere to stay for a few weeks or so. We're really, really busy, looking at probably next month until we can accommodate. Well, that told me a story then, and there was a lot of commercial trades vans in the car park as well. So it told me that the demand was there, local to the house, and also Premier Inn have been there a long time. I'd done a little bit on Airdina. But mostly, because obviously Phil and Jamie aren't from my area, mostly I just done my own research. I just went on Airbnb, Bookie.com, and looked at the competition, wasn't saturated, but there was quite a bit around. And obviously, there's amenities around there. So I just basically went in deep and I tested the water. I just thought, let's just try this. Let's just try it, because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, I just go back to your normal buy to let, or I flip the property. So I always make sure that there's a plan B or a plan C.
And a lot of people say, and I think this is the that you touched upon it just now. Be careful not to listen to certain people, because a lot of people would say, "Oh, you've got to be careful setting up an SA business. You're creating another job for yourself, and you'd worked hard to build a portfolio, which is portfolio buy to let." So I don't like the term passive income, but it is more passive than a day job.
Of course definitely.
It is. And so, how have you found that? Are you a lot more hands-on with the SA business, or is it sort of systemized to a point where it can run without you?
Advice for everybody, again, that's why I reached out to Jamie and Phil, because I always believe that if I'm going to go into something, even if it's a market I'm familiar with, i.e. my industry or the property industry, if somebody's doing a certain niche, what I've not done before, I believe that should get educated from that person, not just go into SA. People say to me now, "Oh, I'm just going to I'm going to start renting my buy to let as an SA." I said, "Oh, have you been educated on it?" "Oh no, you just put on Airbnb, don't you?" I said, "Okay. What happens when you get double booked? What happens when it goes on Booking.com?" And you believe me. So I found out the hard way in a way, even though I was with Phil and Jamie. I ended up having it done. Well, I systemised it, because, of course, it's not as passive as buy to let, and it's not passive now. But I've systemised it with Price Labs, because I use Price Labs to do all my pricing with me, and I also, within weeks of setting up, I've also got a channel manager, which I use Avivo. So obviously the channel manager spits out all the emails and cross references to all the OTAs, the online travel agents, that it's now been booked. So that's good, because if you don't have a channel manager, you're going to have serious problems being double booked.
Yeah, two people but turning up on the same night.
And people calling you, saying, "I'm outside the front door. I've just paid you. Literally today, I've just done a last minute booking, and somebody's already in there, etc., etc." And I did that. I did have that happen. So I had to pull the plug on Booking.com, just completely come out of Booking.com and got a tallying off from them, and waited, because I couldn't wait, and waited till I got the channel manager all set up. So now, really, it's systemised with the channel manager, with Price Labs, who look at how the market's going and change my prices for me.
So that's what they call dynamic pricing.
Dynamic prices, yes, yeah. So they do that on a daily basis. So I don't really get involved with the price structures. I can change base rates when I like, but they usually go with the market. I've had my own website built for direct bookings, and again, that's my channel manager organises that for me as well. So really, when it comes to passive, of course, it's not passive, but what I do and what I like to do anyway is when the cleaners, and I think the most important thing with service accommodation, and anybody will tell you this, is the cleaner. The cleaners are the main thing. If you haven't got a good cleaner, you've got no business. Got great cleaners, and all I do is occasionally, maybe once every 2 weeks, I'll just pop over. I'll check the house when the cleaner's left. I'll make sure that it's to the spec I want it to be. And I might leave a couple of bottles of wine, a couple of beers, some milk, some biscuits, some chocolates, and that's all I sort of get involved with. So I pop over. It's 20 minutes away. I check over the house, do a little video for my Instagram, make sure that the guests have got everything waiting for them for when they turn up, and that's all I get involved with. But I don't have to do that, but I like to do it.
And you, in terms of sort of guest liaison, because it can be a lot of to and froing sometimes with questions and where's a good restaurant, or can I get in early, or whatever. All of the questions that we all have when we go to stay somewhere new. Is that still on you? Is that still kind of you dealing with that, or is that been systemised in some way?
It's systemised. I'd say most of it's systemised, because obviously when a client does a booking, straight away, whether it's 2, 3, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, because obviously with world clock times, etc., and this is what I was saying about, you do need to get it systemised on the channel manager, because you could get bookings at 4 in the morning when you're fast asleep. and you haven't crossed it off with the other online travel agents that you've just took a booking, are you going to spit their email out? Are you going to find time to tell them, oh, hi, yeah, you're welcome, you're coming to the, you're arriving at the home tomorrow, this is your code to get in. You just couldn't control that. It's a full-time job, that is. So to get it systemised was the best thing I ever did. So that's where I'm at now, really, to be fair. I've got it all systemised, it's all running smoothly. And yeah, okay, I do turn up now and then, just to make sure that everything's happy days there, and that's it, and it's running great.
Okay, fantastic. And I wanted to ask as well, from the transition from it being it's going to be a buy to let,
Yeah.
now an SA property.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've got to furnish the property, whereas you probably wouldn't if it was a buy to let. Is there anything else that you had to do to kind of make it ready for the SA market, other than kind of putting the furniture in and that sort of thing? Did it need any other adaptations from when you finished the initial kind of refurb?
Apart from the furnishings, obviously, because that's extra costs as well, which I did put in, which I incorporated in. But I'm in the carpet flooring industry, and I've got a lot of accounts with furnishing companies as well. So I've done it on a budget. What I would say, what I did add to it, I added things like a nest, a hive central heating controller, because I think with when you've got an SA, you're guaranteed, because obviously you're paying all the utilities and you're paying all the bills. I like to have full control. I think it's important to have full control of your heating system. I'm not saying you should turn it down when they go to bed, but you can control it, because people go out and leave it on all day, or they might just leave, lock their doors and just leave the heating on. So if you can't get to that property, it's great to be able to control your heating. Another thing as well is on the outside of the front door, I'll put a ring cam bell, so that I can just, again, you're allowed to do that when you've got an SA. You can't have obviously internal cameras, but you can have an external camera, so I can make sure that the guests, I'll see when the guests have arrived, I'll see when the guests have left.
And I guess you want to see that they are who they
Exactly.
purport to be.
Only they say to me, for instance, "Oh, we've done," because the way I've got my systemised is that if 5 people is a certain price, but over the 5th person, then there's an extra charge. So I just make sure that if somebody says, "Oh, there's only 5 of us," and then 7 turn up, I can clock that on the Ring doorbell. And also, I've had issues where people. I've had one little issue where she said, "Oh yeah, I turned up at the house and it wasn't ready, etc., etc." But I got proof there, which I could send to Airbnb. She actually turned up 2 hours early and tried to get in, etc. So it's the cameras are good for that as well. So apart from furnishings, I'll say the heat control I've had put in. Obviously, all my smoke alarms are all wired in. The ring cam outside. And what we hit on just earlier on as well, which you wouldn't do on a buy to let, is that obviously you've got your cleaner, which you've got your cleaner and your linen. Is all the little goodies I put in, your drinks, your wines, your milks, them as things I've had to add as well to it, which I know a lot of SA, a lot of hosts don't do, but I just like to go to that extra mile and make the guests comfortable and give them some of these luxuries, what they don't get. And the amount of people I've said, I've had email me, contact me and say, "Andrew, the Premier Inn we've been going for absolute years, my God, we've never had a bottle of water off them, let alone yourself. Water, beer, wine." And in all honesty, they've paid for it anyway, because it all incorporates in the cleaning costs. So it's just a nice.
But it's a really, really nice touch, isn't it? If someone turns up, there's a beer in the fridge or a bottle of wine or some milk and coffee or whatever it might be. It's just a job they don't have to
feel more
do.
comfortable than just going to a hotel and just getting no service. Really, in hotels, you don't get. Sometimes you don't even see the receptionist. Well, you come into a house, you want to be made really welcome. I want them to feel that home from home. And another little thing I've added as well is I added obviously TVs, nice TVs in every room, i.e. bedrooms and living room, and with Netflix accounts. So they can just go on Netflix, or they can log into their own Netflix, and yeah. So yeah, it's all worked.
It sounds like a brilliant deal, and a real kind of reinvention of a property that wasn't going to quite work, to actually transforming it or transitioning it into something which plays
100%.
really, really well, and you're really proud of, and justifiably. So is this the first in a series of potential kind of more SA properties, or where are you going with it next?
Well. Yesterday I actually completed on another property in that street across the road. There was because this one's a semi-detached. We've been talking about, but this one's detached. Now, my idea on this one will just be a straight flip, but I do know because of how number 18 is working, that number 24 could work the same. So whether I do this as an SA, I'll know probably in about 3 months' time. And maybe I might start competing with myself because it's a slightly bigger property, and I know it will work. And then you can obviously split properties then, where I might get a 12 per guest booking, but then I'll split them into two houses. However, that's that. I think my next port of call will be in service accommodation. Will be holiday let. So I'm looking now at somewhere coastal, and I know it can be saturated in certain areas, but I'm looking at something unique, and that's probably where I'm going next year.
Okay, and following that kind of larger property profile, or to be confirmed, or to be
It will be a
determined
lot.
when
It
you.
will be a larger property profile. Yeah, it will. It will be a lot. I'm looking for a nice lot, maybe a rundown pub or something. Or I mean, I've just actually I'm looking at one. I'm actively looking at one in Wales now, which is a place. Ironically, I used to stay while I was refurbing a property. I've gone up in Aberdeen, and I was staying there every time I was down there, sort of doing the renovation. And that's come on the market now, and that's sort of got about. I think it's got about 9 bedrooms above the pub. And I'm looking at that just to see whether I could just test the water with it really. But that's when I'm looking at something big, a nice service accommodation on the coast where I could actually go myself when I've got some breaks, when there's some empty spaces in the diary, etc.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, it sounds really, really
Mm.
exciting, and I know you're kind of prolific in property, and you do lots of other types of things as well. So, are you are you looking predominantly at buy to hold now, whether it's SA or are you kind of still looking at the odd flip or kind of added value
I
project?
never stopped looking, to be honest with you, because all my properties are buy to lets, and I have done the occasional flip. If obviously refinancing really doesn't work on them, but I'm now going to another strategy which is split titling. So I'm looking at freehold blocks now, in different cities, freehold blocks where I'll add the value by splitting the titles, um, doing a lot of
Well,
refurb.
that's actually been my favourite strategy that I've
Oh,
done
okay.
myself. But we're not here to talk about me, but we can talk about that
Yeah.
offline anyway. So I can share some ideas on that. But yeah, that's a really interesting one. Particularly if you couple it with the SA or just buy to let, whatever. You've got different options,
Yeah,
haven't you?
yeah.
Particularly if you own the freehold, because lots of SA operators out there kind of operating in blocks where probably
Yeah,
the lease prohibits it,
exactly,
unfortunately.
exactly.
But
I have got a flat in Birmingham, and I did actually. I wanted to put that on SA because it's right in the city centre, but I looked at the lease, and the lease does not allow SA, and so that's a path I didn't take because I like to do everything if I can above board. Um, but no, with property, I don't usually sell the assets. I just like to keep them for generational wealth, really. But I might sell a few little bad ones, but sometimes I look at the deals I've got and think, right, if I was to take if I was to sell that property now, put 60,000 in the bank, less corporation tax, is it worth it, or should I leverage it up to 75% and take the 60,000 out on a remortgage, and because that's tax free, and use it that way?
And interesting as well, you said right at the start of this that lots of legislations come in, which seems to be fairly sort of anti-landlord. It's definitely made it a little bit more problematic for us over in recent times. Is one of the appeals of kind of SA is that we're not bound by the same regulations, and maybe it's even a little bit more tax efficient than your standard buy-to-let
Yeah,
investment.
100%, and that's why, like I say, when I first got into property 20 years ago, these sort of SA didn't exist, so it was all buy to let. And I think in today, I'm not trying to put people off buy to lets, but in today's society where we are now in 2026, buy to let is really, really hard now to make it work. Obviously, the values of properties, etc. So I always like to, with my age and the way the industry goes, I always like to evolve onto the next level. and SA was the next level. And when I looked at that, I thought, wow, not only have I've got no tenants' rights, I can make sort of 3 times the amount. The house always looks beautiful. If I go in there now when the clean's just gone and ready for the next guest tomorrow, it's ready for an agent to come and go, wow, and it sells straight away because it's kitted out. I think it's just a fantastic strategy service accommodation. But like it's the thing is the government changed goalposts all the time. So this time next year we might be having a different conversation because of they might then change the rules on it, tax reasons, and just to tighten the noose around our neck again with SA. And what we do, we'll just find other loopholes and probably go into something else.
I'm absolutely positive you're right, because the one thing I know, and I've been in property for over 20 years now, is that people like yourself who are kind of active property investors are creative and adapt to changes in the market. And if you don't, you end up being one of those landlords who's offloading the property. And as you say, yeah, you might pocket a bit of money now, but we've all got to pay the tax on it.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. And also, there's when these rules come out, I just look at it and think, well, all this is do is that it will just get rid of the bogus landlords who are in the market, have been in the market a long time, and they can't be bothered to because my tenants are all fond of me because I'm always on the ball with them, always changing things that need to be changed. And a lot of properties that I buy and I refurb, I make sure that we get to that, if I can, most possibly get to that C rating on the EPC, knowing that if the government changes the legislation that we need a C rating, most of my properties are already there anyway. So I'm always keeping one step ahead. Now, obviously, and landlords who say, "Oh, I'm not going to spend any money on my property," well, they come out the market. It just makes it better for me, really. So I just think, well, you just carry on. All it is, it's like my industry with carpet and flooring. You're going to have a lot of cowboy carpet fitters who obviously lose their work, or they can't get any work, or they just forget it as a bad joke. But it just makes more money for us professionals, really. That's all it is.
I agree. I think it creates opportunity for the kind of actual more professional investor, without a doubt. So yeah, well, look, Andy, it's been amazing talking to you today. And thank you for sharing, your journey in property and going deep on this deal as well. I know we're going to include some other bits and pieces in the article as well. If people are watching this or listening to it or reading it, and they want to reach out or maybe find out a bit more about you, is there a way for them to do so?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm just sort of testing because I'm just testing the water now with TikTok, so I'm just trying to get used to TikTok. But
Yeah.
I'm on Instagram. I am Andrew Hart Property, and I'm always on Instagram helping people, trying to inspire people. So that's where you can find me.
Okay, that's amazing. Well, look, thank you for your time today. We couldn't do what we do in YPM without people like yourself sharing, fantastic deals and the reality of what it's like actually being in property. So massive thanks for me and everybody reading this, watching it, and listening to it.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me as well.